think we're live.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you once again for joining us today on our 25th webinar episode. And today's topic is New Gaming Licensing Framework Explained, exploring the status of gambling. I want to welcome you once again. Thank you so much for joining us on iGaming Africa community. Was everything about the industry, the gaming sector. We try to bring more light and bring factual information and conversations within the industry. And I want to say welcome once again for joining us on this episode. Before I proceed, my name is Zini AK and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you, iGaming, for also giving me the opportunity. It's always a pleasure being back here on the platform. And then I have the beautiful lady, Olafadeke Akeju. I have Obina Akapuchuku, and I have Arinze Arum. And then I'll let them do us the honor of introducing them. We'll start with Olafadeke.
Hi, Zini. Thank you for having me. My name is Olafadike Akeju. The managing partner of Wise Solicitors, Nigeria's first specialist gaming law firm, dedicated to policy advocacy, regulatory advisory, corporate governance, and of course, compliance solutions for stakeholders in the gaming industry. I started out in the industry about 17 years ago as a regulator. So I've got regulatory background, with the Lagos State Lotteries Board, now Lagos State Lotteries and Gaming Authority. And I'm also the team lead at SLEC Africa, the premier capacity building platform. And I'm also the convener of Women in Nigerian Gaming, a network that is dedicated to supporting and empowering women in the industry. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that warm introduction and very detailed one. Thank you so much, Olafadike. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Let's go to Arinze Arum. Arinze, please, can you introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, Zini. Hi, everyone. My name is Arinze Arum. I am the CEO of Enugu State Gaming and Lottery Commission. We are, a state agency, tasked with the regulation of gaming, and I'm very pleased to be here and be part of the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arinze. And then we go over to Obina Akbuchuku. Did I pronounce it properly?
You tried almost.
Thank you.
Okay, yes. Well, thank you very much, Zini. My name is Obinna Akbuchuku. I'm a private legal practitioner. I'm a senior partner at Allen and Malibon Law Firm. We're a law firm headquartered in Onitsha, Anambra State, Nigeria. And I've been involved in the practice of gaming law. In fact, individually, as a lawyer, my practice is about 70% gaming law since the last 5 years. And it's barely about 30% of my practice that is, or 40% at most, that is outside the gaming industry. We've been, as a firm, we've been representing top gaming bodies in disputes and sometimes also regulatory compliance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Well, you guys will agree with me that it is a all-round full panel. Our list of panelists, we are all grounded, so we're off to a good start today. Awesome, awesome. But before we get into today's webinar, today, the 25th episode was made possible by a few individuals and, of course, company brands and association. And we just want to appreciate them for always supporting the brand and for always making sure that we have platforms like this where needed conversations can be had. So please just give me 1 minute. Let's watch this video where we appreciate our sponsors. Well, thank you so much for that video, our host. But before we get into it, let me also appreciate our sponsors. I'll start with gaming technology and platform providers, which included SoftSwift, Raven Track, Digital, and of course, Every Matrix. And also, we have the Gaming Tech Summit Africa 2025 that is happening in Nairobi from the 2nd to the 6th of June 2025. We also have to thank the Enugu State Gaming Conference 2025. This will also be taking place in Enugu State, Nigeria, from the 30th to the 31st of July 2025. And lastly, I want to also appreciate OneXBit, an industry leading cryptocurrency gaming platform that accepts over cryptocurrency with complete anonymity. Well, like I said, all of these brands have come together and all of these companies and individuals to make sure that this episode happens. So thank you once again. We'll get into it. So let's invite our viewers. If you're watching from LinkedIn, if you're watching from YouTube, thank you so much for being part of this episode. I want to tell you that there is a chat platform where you can send in your messages, your conversation, converse with us. That is why we're here to answer your questions, to throw more light. So please be part of this conversation today. Share your questions with us, comment on whatever conversation it is that is going on and you want to be a part of it. So we're imploring you to join in this conversation here today, and let's make it more interactive as possible. I'm going to start. I'll open up today's session with a clip of an interview that was done with the DG of the Oyo State Gaming Board, and that's Mr. Olajide Babaduro. Babaduro Olajide, I think I've missed it. We'll be playing that clip, and that clip better gives us an insight to what we're all gathered here for today. When we watch that clip, after that, we'll then get into the conversations properly. So let's take a look at the screen.
What we have decided to do as Federation of State Gaming Regulators of Nigeria, which is the body that we have come together to be, is to do a universal license to all operators. We don't want things to be very cumbersome, to where, take for instance, a company like Bet Nigeria wants license in Taraba and they want one in Ekiti, so they will start going to Ekiti, then go to Ebonyi or go to Oyo. So that federation has come together to say, okay, we will issue you one license, and that one license you can use amongst the member states that belongs to the Federation of State Gaming Regulators of Nigeria, under the leadership of the chairman of Lagos State Gaming and Lottery Authority, Mr. Bashir Are. I am the vice chairman of that association, and we have vice chairman from the 6 geopolitical zones of the country as well. And we have all come together to make that a seamless arrangement for all the operators, both current and future operators that are coming into the gaming space in Nigeria, to be able to have a way of doing, of ease of business. So that is what that association is about. That is that is what that unified license is all about. It's quite different. Like I mentioned earlier, there has been a tussle before the 22nd of November on who regulates the gaming and lottery space in Nigeria. And that is one of the reasons why the Lagos State in 2008 sued the federal government. It took 16 years for us to arrive at this point that we are now. So before, some operators they have to get the prescribed National Lottery Regulatory Commission license in Abuja, and also come to the states where they are domiciled to get licenses as well. So that was the order of the day before. That was what was happening. So it was like double taxation, and it was not a comfortable arrangement for the operators. It was not a comfortable I remember for the regulators as well. So what is now different is like they don't have to worry about getting a federal license anymore. What they only have to worry about is just one license that is issued by unified states, and they can use that license in any state at all because the federal government is out of the picture now because the Supreme Court has ruled that states have the right to regulate the gaming and lottery business. So we will issue one license to a prospective operator, and that license it can use whether retail or online to set up. And another good thing about that is Google, Meta, YouTube, Apple recognizes the Federation of State Gaming Regulators now. So before they can advertise, they have to have that license by the Federation of State Gaming Regulators for them to be able to do their business. So the difference is the federal government is out of the picture and the states are the one taking charge now under one unified umbrella. All the states are not on board, but we don't need but two-thirds of the states. And that brings me to what I just told you that the meeting of the Joint Tax Board that is holding in Oyo State has been a very good avenue because you have to remember it's not all the states that have a gaming and lottery authority or a gaming and lottery board. Most of them are under the Bureau of Internal Revenue of the state. So that hence why we're meeting with them to explain to them the direction that we're going. And they have been very receptive. As a matter of fact, we signed up about 7 states between yesterday and today that have joined us now. So we're about 24, 26 states now that are some. So that hence why we are meeting with them to explain to them the direction that we're going. And they have been very receptive. As a matter of fact, we signed up about 7 states between yesterday and today that have joined us now. So we're about 24, 26 states now that are some people the religious what's the word I'm looking for? The religious um barrier as well is there. Some states don't want to show their hands. For instance, a state like Niger State, the governor has categorically said that, oh, it is haram. We don't want to be. But hey, we get it, we understand it. But for the ones that are on board, they don't need to do anything really. All they have to do is accept to be with the federation. And once we collect the license fee, we have a sharing formula that's we go to every state that is member of the federation. So we don't need all states to be on board really. We just need two-thirds of the states, and we already um what's the word I'm looking for? The religious um barrier as well is there. Some states don't want to show their hands. For instance, a state like Niger State, the governor has categorically said that, oh, it is haram. We don't want to be. But hey, we get it, we understand it. But for the ones that are on board, they don't need to do anything really. All they have to do is accept to be with the federation. And once we collect the license fee, we have a sharing formula that's we go to every state that is member of the federation. So we don't need all states to be on board really. We just need two-thirds of the states, and we already. I said, but of course, the complexities and the ineffectiveness that has plagued the industry in the past will now be a thing of the past. Yes, they are AMB, the Association of Nigerian Bookmakers, are very receptive towards this move because it helps them to where they don't. I mean, their members again don't have to be um, going from state to state to try to obtain individual licenses from state. They can get one license and they can do their business in any state that they choose to do their business. So the uh, the uh, the Association of Nigerian Bookmakers that hosts all the operators have been very receptive of the. I mean, in fact, they like it because it becomes a very seamless um, it's a seamless approach for them to be able to do their business and do it effectively. Confusing regulatory mandates is now being cleared by the ruling of the Supreme Court. High costs of administration and burdens from multiple state licensing, that is also eliminated. Revenue loss from unregulated activities, that will be eliminated with a central monitoring system that we're coming up with. And difficulties monitoring cross-border and online gaming, that will also be eliminated. So, of course, I mean, the one major challenge that it has come with is bringing all states together and for various internal revenue service or boards of every state to understand the new framework. But once they understand and they key in, basically it's going to be seamless because what we're doing is an injury to one is an injury to all. If you are not compliant in Zamfara and you are compliant in Lagos, as far as your GGR or whatever, we will sanction you. So once you are under that regulatory body, whatever any operator is doing in a state that is not um, in connivance with their law or with what they how they do business, we will address that as a federation, and we will fight on behalf of that state as a federation. So it will have its own challenges as time goes on. The issues that probably will come on, I'm sure we'll be able to resolve. But the major challenge is that um, the double taxation and all those other things that used to plague us is a thing of the past. So I don't I mean I think the sky is the limit for the gaming industry in Nigeria with that ruling, and we will continue to harmonize and make sure that we do things the right way and make uh, create an environment to ease or I mean for ease of doing business for our current operators and our prospective operators as well. So we just the Federation of State Gaming Regulators just wants to use this opportunity to um, invite each state, the states that are not on board yet, to next collective strength for mutual growth. That's all we're asking. This is not about relinquishing authority, but about leveraging. There are states that are not seeing the bigger picture yet, but when we start sharing money, um, the states that are not on board, I'm sure they will join us. But I thank you for this opportunity to explain what the gaming space in Nigeria is currently looking at, and we are hoping and we are anticipating that um, things will get better, and our operators will find things very easy, and they'll find it very easy to come to Nigeria and do business um, more.
Well, once again, we want to thank the Oyo State DG for that insightful take and explaining what the framework, the new licensing framework is about. But then, because we also have Arinze here with us, I would also like him to, from his own perspective and take, also shed more light into this conversation about the new licensing, the framework, how it works, and what are the steps that are being taken, just for our viewers too, because I can see somebody already asking some questions. So Arinze, let me open the floor to you to also shed more light into this conversation here for us today.
Yeah, thank you, Zini. And Jide, he is my colleague at the Federation, has essentially, you know, done justice to that. I just want to add that, for clarity, the SRO does not in any way diminish the state's regulatory functions and responsibilities. What it does is to effectively pool state resources together, for a standardized, a gaming industry in Nigeria. I mean, you have the same arrangement, in other jurisdictions like the MUSL in the US, the JSPA in Germany, where provinces come together to, for the convenience of operators, as well as having a standardized industry across that jurisdiction. And it's a work in progress. It's a work in progress. This is the first time such arrangements is happening in Nigeria after a lengthy period of litigation between the states as subnationals and then the federal. This is and again, it is mainly for online. The idea, the intention is to, when you're playing in the online space, you, of course, you already know that you're playing across different states, and that means that you are going to need their licenses. And like Jide has said, instead of the bottlenecks and even the high cost of obtaining individual licenses, the SRO arrangement now offers an opportunity to have one license and then operate, within the jurisdiction of the member states. But again, I know that there are all operators are not, you can't place all operators on the same pedestal in terms of the capital base, in terms of financial capabilities, and even operational, capacities. So, and also, which is why it's going to have, it's intended to have a tiered, it's still, like I said, conversation, it's still work in progress, looking at, having a tiered licensing. Of course, an operator might not, want to or have the means to get that SRO license to operate in all the states. An operator, depending on the game, might want to, play in a state or two. You understand? So, seeing that getting that SRO license, might be, you know, not entirely necessary for that operator. That operator is also encouraged to seek that state where he wants to play, seek the state license. So yes, everything today has said, it's the exact position of the federation. And don't forget that the federation had come together even before the ruling of the Supreme Court on November 22nd to do this. So it has been what has been on the front burner of our conversation before this judgment came. And again, what it means,
Yeah.
in addition to what he said, is that uh, um, not just that there is no NLRC. What it means is that the regulatory responsibility and powers have clearly been handed over to states, which, states who are now in turn decided to, come together, collaborate for a more streamlined, licensing, and then more effective regulation. You know,
Thank you so much, Arinze, for that explanation, for also giving your insights and your takes on the framework. But then again, I want to also ask Akeju,
Yeah.
um, going back to your background as a one of the founding members of the regulatory body from way back and up until this point. I want to believe that if there is any structure or any new initiative that is in place now, it's just not a an overnight thing. There have been a process, there have been a journey to these things. I want you to take us back to a little bit briefly about how it was and how the journey has been. And at this point, we've gotten to is this the way forward? Is this the new norm? And how are we adapting to this?
Thank you, Zini. I think it's quite important to understand that the gaming industry is still evolving. In Nigeria, it's still quite young because effectively, in terms of regulation, this took off in the early or in the mid 2000s, right? It started with Lagos State, and then a few other states also took up regulating gaming within their jurisdiction. The federal government also established a regulatory agency, which, thankfully, this dichotomy, the issue of who regulates gaming, has been resolved by the Supreme Court judgment. Now, prior to now, there has always been collaboration and dependency amongst state regulators. First off, for knowledge sharing, capacity building. As I said, in the early days, this was significantly new. And for many of us that started out as regulators, it was unfamiliar territory. So Lagos State, being the pioneer, found itself in a position where, it had to enlighten, knowledge share with other states to ensure effective regulation. It's also important to state that at the time when regulation started, most operations was land-based. It was territorial, so it was very easy to identify who regulates what your territory, the scope is, in terms of the area, the landmass that you controlled. However, with the introduction of online gaming, and it has taken off with technology advancement in Nigeria, access to the internet, and improved products and service verticals in the gaming industry, we have a situation whereby it's not as the geographical and land-based geographical uh, situation that we had prior to now is not what we have today. So what the state regulators are actually trying to do now is to address a sort of um, gap, which prior to now, the federal regulatory authority was controlling or was managing at the time. Now, fantastic idea. It helps, given that Nigeria has 36 states, and if we have a universal license framework, it means that operators do not have to go to each state to get 36 licenses. Now, for some of these operators, they're strictly online. They don't have retail presence, which means they don't have physical outlets in any states. Whilst for some, they do have, but not across the 36 states of the Federation. Like Mr. Baladro said in his presentation, certain states would choose to prohibit gaming. Now, the challenge that the operators and other stakeholders have with the URL, or the Universal Reciprocity framework that is being introduced, is one, we do not clearly know which states have signed up to this. We're informed that 10 states have signed up, and as Mr. Baladro did say, he said they need two-thirds. So two-thirds of 36 and the FCT would bring us to about 24 states signing up. So if we have a situation where just 10 states have signed up, the question we need to ask is, who are these states? We really do not know. The identity of these states has not been disclosed yet formally. And then for operators, there's a commercial, decision to be made in terms of the viability of those 10 states. Because we have to admit that, gaming is a game of numbers, a game of volume. The states where you're getting transactions from would matter. And this is what informs, operators from setting up or approaching certain states regulators. Lagos, of course, is, a significant market with significant market share. Other states, it would depend on the operators and how well they're doing there. So the question is, the states that have subscribed, are they considered commercially viable by the operators, by the other stakeholders? I think I'll just take a pause here and, let others
Yes,
contribute as well. Yes.
thank you so much. Obina is here to say something, so I'm going to direct this next question to him. Obina, let's talk about how this new licensing framework in terms of legal. I'm directing because I know, I know you're a legal practitioner and you're also in that space. So how do you think this framework would, work interacting with other, legal regimes such as the AML/CFT obligations, the consumer protection, the tax laws, and all of this? How is this new licensing framework going to interact with this other, you know federal agencies and reforms that we have, to align these works effectively as the body intends it to?
Okay, thank you very much. I think we'll have to look at the fact that before this new regulatory regime introduced by virtue of the Supreme Court judgment, there has been issues with respect to compliance with the anti-money laundering regulations and even the tax obligations, remitting taxes to the relevant bodies. And so it would require a collaborative effort between the EFCC, that is statutorily um, um, imbued with the powers to implement anti-money laundering policies, and also both the Federal Inland Revenue Service and the state revenue boards. And so it's mostly going to require some form of auditing of the accounts of the operators. How do I mean? When there is a centralized license issued by the Association of State Gaming Regulators and operators are operating, the operators will still have to comply with the anti-money laundering policies. The EFCC will still require them to comply with it. So the fact that the license is now being nationally or centrally issued by the Association of State Gaming Regulators does not affect the obligations of the operators to comply with the anti-money laundering policies. Now, before now, the National Lottery Regulatory Commission, the then federal regulator, had a way of monitoring the activities of the operators on their websites or on their apps. And even the tax authorities have a way of monitoring it. And even the state regulators, most state regulators also have a way of monitoring the activities of the operators, especially those who are involved in online betting. And this means that there is high level of vigilance by the EFCC and the tax authorities in ensuring that first, with respect to the EFCC, that there is compliance with the anti-money laundering provisions of the law. Then, for winnings and other things that will generate taxes for the state, the FIRS and even the state internal revenue bodies have a way of monitoring all of this. So, to me, it's not going to change anything as far as I'm concerned. And it will only require the relevant bodies that are involved in the implementation of all these policies to ensure that they continue to perform their oversight functions as it relates to the implementation of the anti-money laundering. Because as it stands now, If you are a partner and you want to register with an operator, there are some certain KYCs that have to be complied with. In addition to that, when you win a money up to a certain threshold, before you are paid the money by the operator, you are expected to fill the anti-money laundering form, for example. And this has been ongoing. And with the introduction of the universal licensing, it will not change it at all. Also, with the introduction of the universal license, it will also not change the issue of tax. However, there will be problem. I foresee that there might be some form of taxing disputes that may arise with respect to the universal licensing. And how do I mean that? Because the licenses are being centrally issued now, there must be a way to determine from which state is each player playing the bet, especially the online bet. If it is for physical bet, it's very easy. Wherever the punter visits the shop, that is the state where he's playing it. Because where the punter played the bet have a way of determining how much a state gets in terms of revenue for the tax, especially when it has to do with this newly introduced tax that has been suspended anyway. That will have to do with taxing a punter for a fraction of what he won in the betting, although it has been suspended by the federal government. But if it is introduced, there must be a way of determining where did each the punter play the bet from. It might require the operators to ensure that when a punter is filling the form or playing the bet, he indicates where he's playing from. Because each state may want to claim a fraction of the total revenue generated from the taxes paid by the winners from their winnings. And so these are some of the few issues that may arise. But generally speaking, I do not think it changes anything. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hosts, can you unmute my mic? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that also. I want to ask Arinze this question. It's fresh, so I don't know if they have sorted out all the fine print and all of that. So I'm going to ask you a question, strain of conversation. Yeah, I want Akeju to also throw in, some points with the question I asked Obina earlier. Akeju, do you want to add something to that, please?
Yes, I would just like to, add on to Obina's contribution because he raised a key point in terms of dealing with other complementary regulatory authorities and providers. He touched on the FIRS, he touched on, EFCC. I'm going to add ARCON, that is the Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigeria, to the mix. I'm going to add payment providers as well to the mix. Prior to now, we had a situation whereby these regulators and providers could independently carry out KYC on operators by just going online to the national regulators website, and they would have access to all of the information that they needed. It was pretty streamlined. They could confirm, the license of the operator, by just independently, right? But now that we have a situation whereby there are 36 states, and according to Arinze, whilst the federation is coming together in terms of licensing, each state still maintains its autonomy, still issues its licenses, still regulates other aspects of gaming within their territory. Now, the challenge this has been posing, and this is, something that is actually happening now, is that complementary providers are, at a loss in terms of which regulator to deal with. We've had situations whereby at Google, for instance, placed a ban on adverts from the gaming sector in Nigeria. Of course, the CEO of the Lagos State Lotteries Board, also the chairman of the Federation of State, was gracious enough to reach out and try to resolve this situation. But what that then resulted in is, recognition of operators who had certain state licenses to the detriment of others. So, in terms of the framework, I believe that it needs to go beyond licensing. And we actually need to know what is covered, so that operators are properly prepared and equipped, to, if necessary, to make changes to their business structures, and accommodate the new regulatory reality that we have right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Akeju. Thank you for that. And thank you for the last part of that, your conversation, because that was actually what was driving my next question for Arinze. It's like a 3-in-1 or a 2-in-1 question, Arinze. So please bear with me. So, firstly, I know it is a new framework, and for everything new like this, it takes a bit of time to iron out all the kinks and all the intricacies involved. But then I'm gonna ask this question: have there been conversations about of that it takes for to issue these licenses from the date of application to the day of issuance? What's the timeline like? And also, the question Akeju also raised towards the end of our conversation: what are the details, what are the requirements, what are the things that this need to have or need to adjust their present operations to enable them applicable for these licenses, and also to be eligible to get this license?
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. And I want to begin, with the last issue Olafadeke, the last point she made. You see, it is not what I said is that gaming is not a culturally homogeneous activity. Certain games might work in this state, it might be acceptable here, and then certain games or certain gaming activities, are not acceptable here. So, and the federation understands that states also have, and that's why the conversation around is that states maintain some level of regulatory functions as it relates to their local laws, of course, and especially the land-based operators and the operators that has retail outlets. Federation mostly focuses its this SRO arrangement on online, games. Localized games are still, as much as they are under the federation in terms of regulation, the state also has powers, to make further regulations and then enforcement and then compliance issues. Now, to what you said in terms of timelines, you see, the federation has just come together, and then states are signing up, the SRO agreement. And in fact, the last meeting we had on the 7th of May, the federation agreed that the SRO is going to take off in June, this coming June. And what that means is that, of course, we've already communicated to the public that the federation has come together, the SRO, and to correct Ola Fadeke, it is not 10 states that have signed. Before the Joint Tax Board conference in Ibadan, we had about 13 states. So, by the time the federation, addressed the conference at Ibadan, which, is populated mainly of a state IRS, Internal Revenue Services. So more states, were, agreed to on board, and about seven, eight of them. So currently we have about 24, 22, 20. I'm not sure of the number, but it's more than 20 states, who have keyed into the SRO arrangement. So what happens is that the federation, there is a secretariat, there's a body who now, prepare, draft regulatory requirements, uh, uh, um, issues, compliance requirements, and all that, that will now guide, the licensing, step by step processes of obtaining that SR license. We'll call it universal reciprocity certificate,
Licensing.
URC. So
That's cool.
it is, of the national, the secretariat, to work out these details in terms of timeline, in terms of requirements. If an operator wants that URC, what to do, and then when to expect it between the issuance of that license. So it's not something that I can tell you here, but it's being worked on as we speak.
I think I was muted. Thank you so much, Arinze. Before I go to question for Bina, but Arinze, because you mentioned the URC, I'm going to ask you: is this going to be a, like, one size fits all in for all gaming and gambling operations in Nigeria, or will there be separate licenses for different?
I think you're having
Can you hear me now? Is it
sorry,
clear
I
now?
didn't
Can
hear
you
you.
hear
I
me?
didn't get your question. Yes, it's clear. Yes,
Is this
yes.
better? Okay. Can I take that again? Can I take it
Yes,
again?
please.
Okay, all right. I
Yes,
said,
please.
because you mentioned the URC towards the end of your conversation, I'm just going to ask this: would the licensing be a one fits all, or will there be separate license for different gambling operations and operators, or would there be like a one certificate, one fits all URC certificate, URC?
I think the network. I think the network is, you know,
Zini,
I think we're having a problem with
Zini,
the network. Correctly, you're asking if it's going to be one fit all license. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, or there will be
Because I
different
didn't get it.
categories
It
for
was.
different operations, gaming operators and operations.
Oh yeah, no. You see, like I said, it's going to be. You have, just like Obin has stated, some aspects of the sector will not change. You have different categories of games. You have, for example, you have a sports betting, inclusive of the online. You have a lot. You have your casino. These are different categories of licenses. There are also, you want a license for sports betting, the SRO, URC license for sports betting. That is the license you're going to, the federation is going to issue to you. If you want for lottery, so it's not. It's not a one fits all license arrangement whereby you obtain the license, and then, because you also take into account operators major in a particular aspect of game, and then we also the different capacity of operators. You
Okay.
understand, in
Okay.
terms of spread.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Arinde. Obina, let me ask you this. I know you talked about the question I asked you earlier about the synchronization between this new body and the other legal compliance platforms or practices and all. But then I'm gonna ask you this question: what does this mean for the future of gaming in Nigerian markets? What does this mean for the future, for investors, for innovators, for market stability, people coming in? Right now, what is our future looking like with this new framework?
Okay, thank you very much. I think the future is looking bright. I'll tell you why. During the Africa Gaming Expo held in Lagos earlier in March, I spoke with the head of legal department of a sports betting company. She told me then that they were closing shop. What was her reason? Overtaxation by different states. And she said her company can no longer cope with paying numerous taxes by the states. And when I talk about taxes, she wasn't talking about other minor taxes that are paid by the operators. She was talking about renewal of licenses for each state. And she cited an example of a state where they barely have less than 10 shops, and they're asking them to pay several millions of naira annually for renewal of licenses. And sometimes some of these state regulators are not conscious of the fact that the operators are of different capacity. There are the big giants, then there are the smaller players. The big giants may have 100, 200, or 300 shops in the state, whereas the smaller players may have 5, 10 shops in the state. And then they were being subjected to almost the same licensing fee for each state. And so now that there will be this universal reciprocity certificate, I expect that it will reduce the running costs of the operator significantly. Yes, and but beyond that is the fact that a lot depends on how the Association of State Gaming Regulators fine tune this whole collaborative effort of universal gaming license. A lot depends on it because if it is not properly handled, then we might end up having the same issues we were having before now. How do I mean? When Arinze was speaking the first time he spoke, he made mention of the fact that despite the introduction of the universal reciprocity certificate, that the independent state regulators will also be issuing some form of licenses for certain gaming operations. So there is a need for there to be clarity as to which of the gaming operations are affected by are covered rather by the universal reciprocity certificate, and which of the gaming operations are not covered by them. And so that because now as it stands now, most of our clients are at a loss. Most of the operators are at a loss as to the modalities, as to the extent of the operations of this universal reciprocity certificate. In fact, before this webinar, I had spoken with the head of gaming for Abia State, and the impression he created to me was that this reciprocity certificate will be all encompassing, and there will be no dichotomy between land-based operations and online and any of them. It will be all encompassing. However, I'm getting a different update from Mr. Arinze during this webinar. So it is difficult for some of us to advise our clients or even prospective investors as to what the situation is, as to where to get the license and all that. Then, and apart from that too, there should also be simplicity in obtaining the license, whichever is applicable, whichever license is applicable under the Universal Reciprocity certificate. How do I mean? Before now, in Enugu State, for example, thanks to the innovative effort of the Enugu State Gaming Board, you can obtain licenses online. You can submit your application, fill in the document, make the payment, and online. You don't have to travel all the way down to most states, even Akwa Ibom State and a few other states. And so now I am aware, and I stand to be corrected, that the Association of State Gaming Regulators do not have a functional website for where prospective operators can obtain the licenses and all of this. So, and we are talking about the implementation kicking off by June. June is next week. And so the whole arrangement brought cheers and smiles in the faces of operators. I, as a lawyer that is deeply involved in gaming law, I was happy about it because I've always had the opinion that regulation should be left to the state. And during the African Gaming Expo last year, I asked Mr. Bashiru the question as to how do we deal with the issue of multiplicity of licenses. I asked him that question during the panel session that he spoke on. And he told me that the state regulators were having this meeting that has now resorted to this universal reciprocity license. So I feel that the future is bright and the future is looking good. And because of the fact that it is likely going to lead to an increase in investment in the gaming industry, because Nigeria is a big market for the gaming industry. However, how bright it would be will depend a lot on how the Association of State Gaming Regulators navigate this whole issue as to universal reciprocity license. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Obina. Thank you so much. Arinze, I think you'd like to add something to that briefly before we get
Yes.
into the audience question, because I can see a lot of questions in our chat. So we'll have to take about one or two before our time goes off. So I would like just add briefly what you want to.
Yeah, yeah. So with respect to what Obinna said, relating to online retail gaming dichotomy, the point I tried to make was that the federation, the SRO, the license that issued to an operator gives you, room to operate in all the member states. However, you have a situation where an operator, is limited to a state, operating in a state or two states. That is not enough for that operator to go for, an SRO license. An operator might want to obtain a state's license, for the sole purpose of operating only in that state. That is what I try to say. Not, separating online and most, big operators that are, spread everywhere they do online, and even it's a hybrid operation. They have online and retail outlets. Operators like Bet Niger, in the sports betting, Bet King and all that. They are almost on all the states. You have operators, a different tier level, who are operating or who would want to operate in a state. You have offering a raffle, within a state. That is what I mean by the federation recognizes that a state can issue a license to a localized operator, not crossing that a jurisdiction of the state to another state. That's what I mean, and it has not changed or created the the confusion Obinna just expressed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. But I want to chip in something.
Okay, thank you.
I want to chip in something, please.
Okay, Obina, briefly,
Yeah, yeah,
please. We
yeah,
are we are far behind
yeah,
time, so
yeah.
we can take questions.
Few seconds. I think part of the issues that we may
Okay.
you may experience is the issue of some operators biting more than they can chew. I remember Mr. Rinze mentioned the fact that some operators may want to just operate in one state, in which case they may not need the universal reciprocity certificate. However, I foresee that if there is no strong regulatory check by the Association of State Gaming Regulators to ensure that an operator has the capital base, the financial capacity to operate in the number of states that it has chosen to operate in. We may have a situation where an operator may bite more than it can chew. We have high situations where operators have gone under the ground, unable to pay betting claims because of the fact that they had more winnings that they are financially capable of offsetting. And so, and I know that when it was the gaming board, the gaming operation was regulated centrally, the National Lottery Regulatory Commission had a way of ensuring that operators did not operate beyond their financial capability. So now that we have the universal reciprocity licensing, they must find a way to ensure that we do not have the situation where, because you now have a license that entitles you to operate in more than one state, you now jump into operating in 20 states when you do not have the financial capacity to be able to pay the winnings that may arise from such operations.
Obina, thank you very much. But I'm looking at Fadeke's face when you were talking, and was this the look and this smile on her face? It looks like you were saying something. Like you were taking the words right out of her mouth. Had to use her own words. But quickly, I know we are running against time, and my host will be buzzing us very soon. But let me get your take on this, because this two gentlemen has been going back and forth on this. What's your take, please?
Well, again, I mean, this is why conversations like this are, good to have. I mean, it provides clarity and then it lets us know, the various perspective that is, that we have out there. Prior to Arinize's clarification, I also had the same thought as Obina, that it was a universal license, but coming here, we're getting a different feedback, which just highlights the fact that we're not home. It's not home run yet. For the regulatory landscape, it's still work in progress. We appreciate that with the judgment coming in November, definitely the regulators need time. It's not a matter that they can deal with in isolation. They have to deal with the various state governments because there's a limit to the capacity of the regulators themselves. They have to carry the attorney generals along. And perhaps a lot of enlightenment needs to go, into the process. That's exactly what I was just smiling because that's what's playing out. And some of Obina's perspective on the industry and operators biting more than they could chew. I
Yeah.
found that
Yeah. Yes,
interesting.
I get it.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for adding to that. Before we go into our questions, like I said, we have a couple of questions to take. So I'm going to read out the question, and any of us that want to, take that can indicate and just, answer that. But before I do that, this is for our hosts. Please, we want this section again. So the reason why I am saying this is because I have, during this whole conversation, I noticed that there's a lot of parts, missing parts that are yet to be pieced together. And like I said earlier, it is new, it is fresh, it is just few months, old. So they are still iron out the details, all the dotting the I's and crossing the T's. But then again, these are necessary information that needs to be out there. So if we can have the session sometime, a few months from now, when we feel like there's now a proper structure, and there are like more details, and all the other parts are missing pieces of the puzzle have been fit in and put in place, we can then have this, so we can also have this conversation, and the public can also have an idea of what this framework is in its entirety. So that's for our host. Thank you so much for, I'm looking forward to the next one. But then let's take our question. I think I'll take, which one are we taking for? I think I'll take Sanji's question first, or Chela. I think Chela came first, so I think we'll take his question first. Um, so he said one of the speakers spoke about capacity of regulatory authority to check revenues generated. So he said here in South Africa, we have the National Gaming Authority contracting private sector entities to perform gaming monitoring with a view, to determine what is due to each province. But how, like, what's the structure like in Nigeria, and how do we achieve this? How do we monitor these things on our own end?
So, if I may,
Okay.
yeah. So that also has been discussed and also going to be implemented. The SRO, the federation is also going to be deploying technology. It's going to deploy a central monitoring system, for real time monitoring of operations of every licensee under the SRO. So it's not going to be a problem. Just as you had it with the NLRC, the federation is also going to adopt that and it's so important for fairness for which word am I looking for? But for a complete compliance, in fact, it's the development of that is it's well at an advanced stage. Like I said, the federation is ready to take off in June, and all this has been taken into consideration and even worked on. It's simple as deploying that central monitoring system where every operator licensed under that SRO, is going to be hooked into by way of integration for real-time monitoring, and it also that also we're able to specify these operations happening, in this area, in this jurisdiction. And I think Obina said something about that at some point, how to identify, you know, which area a pointer is playing from. That also is going to be taken care of by that central monitoring system. It's going to, geotag every pointer and every play, that's going to happen, and it's going to be real time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's take this one more question before we go. 1 hour, seven. Okay, okay, we have to go. But let's take this because I like this one too, and that is one of the questions I also wanted to ask during the session. But because, like I said, all the details have not been ironed out yet. But I would like to take this. So, Sanja, today I have a question. Looking at the current states, since the previous licenses issued by the lottery are no longer valid due to the Supreme Court judgment, and the new licensing framework is not yet. So, how it look like for the operator? What would they have to do? Need to do state by state? What do they expect in terms of enforcement? And for operators that operate nationwide, for example, with a previous lottery commission, like how do they go about navigating uh, uh, um, before trying into the new framework that we have?
Okay, so again, that scenario has also been considered and discussed, and it is part of the reason why the federation, was so eager to commence the URC licensing. Uh, for operators that have, the defunct NLRC license, it is intended that, as the SRO is commencing in June, we're going to, be obtaining a transition license. Again, the federation, when the modalities and then the requirements and all that are worked, details of that will be made known, about that. Then we have some operators that have, both national, the defunct national, and then some state licenses that are still active. All that has also been taken into consideration, and will not pose any issue. All they need is to, some kind of ratification, the licenses and all that. For those that has license, active license of member states, that have been capped to, expire, in December. The ones that are expired, are now being encouraged to, obtain the SRO license. So it is not a problem at all. It's not a challenge at all. Once the SRO commences in June, operators are now, encouraged to seek that license. For those operators that have NRRC license. I think the federation is also, asking that, they want to issue, kind of a transition license to effect until, they can now obtain the full license.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, every one of you here today. So we have Arinze, we're doing our closing already. Before I move on to the next person, so I don't have to go back to you, Arinze, do you want to tell us briefly, very shortly, about the coming Enugu gaming
Conference.
event, and also give us a closing remark in 2 minutes,
Oh,
please.
absolutely. So we are having an Enugu Gaming Conference 2025, where you just said to the host that we need to do this again. The theme of our conference is from unification to diversification, and is essentially looking at the Nigerian gaming market as it relates to the new development of decentralized regulation as occasioned by the decision of the Supreme Court. So we're going to be looking at the challenges, the prospects, what obtains now, and just like we have outlined in this webinar, it is going to be a whole lot, and it presents a process opportunity, it presents a networking opportunity. There's going to be a broker session, and we have already partnered with we're partnering with some federal institutions like the National Data Protection Commission, who are going to have a breakout session, and we're also discussing with the NCC, are going to be there too, and there are other um, projects that are going to be unveiled. We are pitching sessions and all that. So it's a, and mind you, we've done this last year, and just building on the last year's success. The conference, it's an avenue also for industry experts to come into Enugu, and by extension the Southeast gaming market, and exploit. It's a budding market. It's a fast growing market, within the Nigerian gaming market. So we invite operators, we invite financial institutions, payment gateways, and every stakeholder in gaming, to come into Enugu, and we'll be glad you did.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Obina. Any closing remarks? 2 minutes.
No,
1 minute. 2 minutes is a lot. 1 minute.
no problem. Thank you so much. It's important that we continue to have this conversation. It is by having the conversations that we unearth some teething challenges that we might face along the way. Uh, I'm sure that I'm yet to see anybody that is involved in gaming in one way or the other that is not excited by the new regulatory regime. I tell you, I've spoken with some lawyers, I've spoken with payment providers, I've spoken with operators. I think the only people that are saddened by it may be the employees of the National Lottery Regulatory Commission, I'm afraid. And so it is important that we continue to have this conversation, and that is why I'm happy that the Enugu State Gaming Conference is coming, and I'm happy that we'll take this conversation down there to discuss further on it, and the future looks bright. Thank you.
Thank you
Yes.
so much, Obina. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining. It has been an insightful section with you. Akedu, closing remarks.
Yes.
Mm,
Right. Well, we've said what there is to say at this point based on the information that we have available. One thing I would like to
yeah.
highlight, especially to the regulators, is for whilst we understand that they need time, there's also a need to look on the other side, especially with respect to the last question: what happens in the meantime, to those who were national licensees? Do they go to the states, or do they wait until the new URC kicks off, properly? The world is watching Nigeria right now. As lawyers, as Ubin has said as well, we get a lot of questions, many of which were not properly positioned to provide clarity and proper direction to guide not just existing operators, but also potential investors also service providers, and they are making decision, knee-jerk decisions because there's really no guidance. So it's very imperative that we resolve this issue of the regulatory framework we want to have in place so that we can go back to the proper business of you know, gaming as it should be done in a responsible and sustainable manner. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olafadeke. Thank you so much, Obina. Thank you, Arinze. This session has really been insightful, and I have good news too. So our hosts have promised us that we'll be back again for another session. So I think my pleas worked. So we're looking at having another session by July. That would it means since the body is launching in June, it will give us ample time to have understood some of the nuances, the languages, the I's and the T's, and then we can come back in July or late at most August to discuss this. It means, and I also have some other questions here that I can see that these are important questions that also needs to be addressed. So it means come July or come August, we'll have another session where we can discuss all of these other details furthermore, so there will be clarity and more insight. Thank you so much to every one of you for giving us your time and for talking to us. It has actually been very informative. I've seen the conversations and the comments on the session today. So I just want to appreciate every one of you for bringing your insights into today's webinar. And I also want to appreciate all our viewers joining us from LinkedIn, YouTube, or whatever social platform you're joining with. Thank you so much for getting in the conversation, for sharing your opinions, asking the much needed questions. Thank you so much. And also to our host, iGaming Africa, thank you for always making this platform available to have all of these conversations, needed conversation, creating this avenue for experts and, to gather together and talk about the gaming sector in the African market space. So thank you once again, iGaming Africa, and to all our sponsors. Thank you for being part of this and for making this work. Thank you so much, everyone. I think we'll call it a day, but we'll leave you guys with the videos of our sponsors saying thank you once again. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.